Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back to NickTalks. Hope everyone's doing good. Hope we're all making moves, getting things done, achieving some form of success or a step to get us there. Thank you for watching, as always. I did already talk about the additions to the office, trying to invest in the space here, make it a little bit more professional, keep me more organized, so that hopefully I can bring some better content out here. Any other updates? No, none that I can think of. I guess I'll touch on briefly before we get started. I would like to do another finance tracking video talking about like the benefits of. Now, maybe this is more subjective and just for me because I've always been god awful with managing my money. And so I'm like, it's blowing my mind how well that's working. But I've gotten a lot tighter on how I manage my money recently. And it has made such a big difference. And it has changed the outlook on how I make money, how I spend money, what I spend money on, right? Like now that I'm very pinpoint and very accountable to myself in all of the different departments, because this is an old video, so I'll have to touch up on it again. But basically, I split on a document. I have the percentage categories of where I want things to go, and I have expenses, saving, investing, personal cash, and then giving, and they're all different percentages. It's 60, 10, 10, 10, 10. And, before it was like I had this system, but like sometimes I'd go like a week or two without looking at it and I wouldn't keep it up to date. And then, stuff would just kind of happen and then I had to catch up and I'd have to borrow money from this category to make this category not bad. And now I'm much more accountable with it. And it's pretty great. I see things differently. Even like from a personal cash perspective, it was 5% before and I bumped it up to 10%. Because I've been able to take 5% off of expenses. And before, 5% is a very small amount. I'm not a millionaire over here, so the money that flows in there, is minimal. And so it made me really evaluate things before I buy them. So maybe I pick something and I'm like, this is where the thing that I'm saving up for essentially. And then I get halfway there and I'm like, is it worth this? I'm waiting 2 months to get this. Is this worth the amount of time and effort and money that I have to spend and save and earn just to get this thing? So it kind of just makes me realize a little bit more and take it more seriously. And then in the long run, I appreciate what I get more because it's a more intentional process. So that's just a brief little something to get us started that I'll definitely expand on at a greater length later. But if you're not checking your money all the time, check it out and find a way that works for you and really be tight on it because, ain't no way we're going to get there to the end of the rainbow if we don't know how to manage money now. How do you expect yourself to be able to manage millions to hundreds of millions to billions if you can't even manage $1,000, right? So that's something that I've been getting increasingly better at and it's really paying off. So there you go. With that being said, we will leap it right into it. So first off, talking about the creative process. This is something that was Harold and I briefly talked about, maybe not the creative process specifically, but processes in general, and how a lot of times things are just done and you don't fully take into account how or why you do them. And then you just do it that way forever and just builds a habit. And something that I'm trying to push myself in a direction of is to really analyze the process of how I do things. And so I know myself better and I know how I flow and how I get into a great creative space and how I get things done and how I'm really productive or really good at relaxing or, just learning more about the process of what makes me feel in tune with what I'm doing, whatever it may be. And so specifically about the creative process is learning what stimulates you to be creative. And then on the other side of that, it's learning what takes away from that creative process. And this can be, activities that make you feel like that really get the juices flowing, or it could be food or drinks or stimulants or whatever. Like anything that gives or takes should be analyzed accordingly so that you can now manipulate those factors. And it's like designing a nootropic, but just within your daily habits, and you're not actually taking anything. So maybe um, like I haven't really implemented deep processes within this, but it's somewhat in the realm of me having one of my days off be for relaxation, so that my other day off is more productive and focused because I'm not worried about wishing that I was relaxing. So being more intentional with my time in that sense. But like, does drinking alcohol make you feel slower when you're trying to work on your projects? Does it make you feel faster? How about drinking coffee? Our first guest, Harold Nunley, mentioned that drinking coffee uh, distracts his mind to different topics, and it gives him more of a broad view, and it's more difficult for him to be focused on a singular task with the addition of caffeine. And so that's something that I think is somewhat of a superpower, to recognize your own process and understand that this is how this thing affects me, and so I should change my behaviors accordingly, so that you can bump up your process all the way. So that way you don't have to just muscle your way into being creative or being productive or relaxing or anything. You don't have to force yourself to do it because you've created a system that does it for you, right? Um, Man, there was another aspect of that I kind of wanted to highlight, but either way. So just really dissecting your habits, and like I said, right now we're specifically talking about the creative process, but I think this is really more applicable in broad sense to everything, right? Like how you do things. What makes you quit going to the gym more, right? Like if you wake up in the morning, is there something that you do that more likely than not kind of sways you in the direction of not going to the gym that day, right? Or if you're really good on your diet, what things that you do or you have around you increase the likelihood that you're going to cheat on your diet, So how do you just paying attention to what you got going on and really analyzing your process. And I think that this is like super key, because then and I'm not sure that I really understood this until a few days ago, but when you can understand the process, you are now putting the load on the subconscious mind, which I would argue has more power than the conscious mind. You're putting the load on the subconscious mind, and it is creating a habit that drives you to the point that you want to go with less conscious effort, right? So you are building a system within yourself that you understand because you've created, instead of just letting your conscious mind try and create things all the time. You've understood your process on how you do things a specific way and how it leads you here and what you like and what you don't like. And then you've implemented that so resolutely that you're now just rock solid and your mind just does it for you. And this takes so much energy out of the equation and frees up so much energy for other uses, right? So kind of a long story there, but I guess at some point I would really like to talk about this whole conscious mind versus subconscious mind deal, about how when you can utilize your subconscious mind to work for you instead of against you, it really becomes a game changer, in the sense that you don't have to constantly be thinking about what you're going to do and how you're going to do and why you're going to do, because your mind has already, like the deeper parts of your mind that you don't always control, has already done it for you, right? You just have to do the upfront work and get it out of the way, and then you can just guide yourself to the end, right? And enjoy the process much more and have much more energy to spend on things that you actually want to spend it on, right? Like, instead of, it's, I have an analogy, but I'm not sure that it works exactly how I would like it to. But essentially, like, I hate doing laundry. I mean, I like doing laundry. I hate folding laundry, right? And so now I've found that if I just, every single time I do laundry, I bring it inside and I fold the clothes and I put them away immediately, then it's fine and it's done and I don't think about it. And since I've done it so often that I'm in a habit now of like, as soon as I take it in and they're nice and hot and they're not wrinkled or anything, fold them up, put them away, and it's done, right? But before, and then even now, sometimes I'll slip up and I'll have like a couple times of laundry days where I'll let it sit, and then it's just taking up space in my mind because I know that it's not done. It's taking now energy because my conscious mind has to continuously register that this task is untaken care of. And so if I can just program it in and build a habit so that the subconscious mind just guides my body while I'm doing other things and thinking about other things, that as soon as I take my laundry in, I put it down, I start folding it immediately, and then it's done within 10 minutes, and then it's over, right? Just building that in so that it is routine to the point where now it is a process that is guided by your subconscious and not something that you have to actively think about doing because it is already going to be done just because you do it all the time, right? If that makes sense. So bringing it back to the main headline here, using this principle on your creative process so that you can generate more creative energy and flow and juice, right? You can get in the juicy zone. So finding that, because I believe that everyone has a creative genius somewhere within them in some department. Maybe not be the same as everybody else, right? But it's in there somewhere. You have something that you can get really, really, really good at in a way that nobody else ever could. But you're fighting yourself actively the longer you spend not figuring out your process. Now, can you still do great things without figuring out your process? Sure. Because of course you're going to develop a process whether you think about it or not, right? But it's if you can think about it intentionally and do this upfront work and then guide it all the way, now you have a machine that produces creativity. And that's much better than trying to get into this flow zone and like thinking through and doing like 45 minutes of exercise, like thinking through your projects just to finally reach that zone, rather than, ironing out a process that's like, I eat a banana and then I go and I do 15 push-ups and then I do some breathing exercises and then I sit down. And that takes me 13 minutes, and that's way better than 45. I'm just talking at this point, but that is kind of what I mean. Just discovering what makes you the most creative that you can be, and then tweaking that formula to produce even better results. And then when you find a good formula, lock it in and then make it habit, so that now you have such an easier access to this flow of creative, right? Cool. So similarly to this, I would say, is identifying draws on your subconscious. This is pretty much like the opposite, like what kills stimulation and avoiding that, but more in the sense of taking care of nagging problems. Like it's, I've heard several times that like if a task can take you less than 2 minutes to do it right now, like as soon as you recognize it, because then it doesn't build up. And I'm noticing, especially now, like right now, my right tail light on my car has been out for like 2 months, and I have the bulb in my driver's seat, in my glove box, right? And I just haven't changed it. And every single time I get in my car, I'm like, all right, I got to change that thing, and then I get on the highway and I can't signal right. So I just have to keep going left or just wait until there's a clear space. I don't cause a freaking 10-car pile up on I-95, right? Or FL-95, whatever, right? So this is something. And then also I bought a freaking a blow-up paddle board. So I have this massive box in my back seat, and I have just created the habit so that I keep my car clean all the time. I always had just a landfill in my backseat at all times. Yeah, just push that shit over, homie, right? I've always been that guy. And very recently, I've made it a process to where my car's always clean. It never has anything in it except what needs to be in there, right? And now I got this big ass box in there that's been in there for probably 3 months, Well, maybe not that long. It's just barely longer than the taillight situation. But the point is, that's 2 things just with my car that is continuously nagging on my mind. Maybe it's not like every second of every day, excuse me, but you bet your fucking sweet bippy that every time I step in my car, I start thinking about that. And it's like, man, dude, I really got to get this box out of here. And I park, when I get home from work or the gym or wherever, I park right next to the dumpster. All it would take me is 10 minutes or 10 seconds to just whoop, whoop, throw it in there. And then I'm back to a clean car, right? So it's just these things, they take a little bit. I'm not saying it's a substantial amount, but they take a little bit of your mind from everything else that it could be focusing on, right? And the more of these things you let pile up, the more you have this expansive thing, and the next thing you know, you got to spend a whole Sunday afternoon just taking care of all this little bullshit that you could have done a year and a half ago, right? And so just, being able to quickly identify this is something that needs to get done right now because I know it's super easy, and then taking care of it. And then it's out of the way. It's out of the freaking way. And I think, kind of going back into the process bit, this can become a subconscious habit where just as soon as you see a problem, you take care of it. And if it's a larger problem that requires more thought and more planning and a greater level of execution, then you can sit and think about it and kind of brainstorm how you want to get this out of your way. But if it's something small, like I got to write this letter, I got to send this email, I have to apply to this job, right? I got to just look up this topic that I've been thinking about. I got to make this list. I got whatever. Any of these little tiny details that just end up piling up, and then you never get to them. And it's like, this could have been done so much longer ago, right? And so it's the rock in the shoe. It's that little hitchhiker in there that, Jesus H. It's that little hitchhiker in there that is just with you every step, and it makes every step just a little bit more unbearable. And when you could have just stopped in the first 10 steps and pulled the rock out, and then the rest of the marathon is a freaking breeze, or at least more of a breeze than it would have been than running freaking 26.2 whatever miles in, wow, that was a total, if I was right, it's 26.2 miles on a marathon. Send me money. I don't know. I'm a winner. I'm a winner because I just pulled that out of my ass. But it is somewhere in the 20s. So, but anywho, back on track here. It's that little tiny thing. It's like when you put on a shirt and it's got like a little pokey thread that is getting you, and you're just like, ow, and then you move a little bit and it goes away, and so you're like, oh, okay. And then like every couple of minutes it pokes you again. You're like, ow. But as soon as it pokes you, it goes away. So you're like, it's fine for now. But then that lasts all day. And then next thing you know, your side's all red because it's been getting stabbed by this thing that you could have just lifted up your shirt, felt around for it, and then pulled it out. Right? So just take care of the easy business as soon as it pops up, because then you can focus on the stuff that actually requires thought. And then you don't have to have this nagging that is in the back of your mind. This is just annoying, dude. It just sucks. It just sucks ass. So just take care of it up front. And now I am completely preaching here. Like, this is not something that I am ironclad at right now. But I would say that I was really getting to a point where immediately I would take care of the easy tasks and then just focus on the bigger task all the time. And now it's this cascading effect where I'm sure first it was the taillight went out, and then it was I needed an oil change, and then I have this box in my car. It's always the car, man. This thing's a fucking trip, but that's my girl. But these build up, and then it's like, oh well, I gotta clean my shoes, or there's a spot on top of the fridge that I really need to clean, and I haven't done it in a long time. And then it's like, as you do that, I'm teaching my subconscious mind that I don't have the habit of doing this. I'm not the person that does this. Like, this is becoming part of my identity now, that I don't take care of these easy problems when they pop up. And so you've built this habit of not doing that, when instead it's just like, it just takes a couple times and you can get in this rhythm of, as soon as something pops up, you're like, that would take me no time at all to fix. And you don't even think about it. You just go and do it. And then it's done. It's done. It doesn't take up any, the rest of that marathon is a smooth run, right? So something to think about there. And again, these things are kind of hand in hand. This is the same thing as finding what kills your stimulation, what kills your creative process or your flow or your productivity. It's these things that you let, part of it at least, is these things that you let build up in the background. It's like, dude, I could have been done this, could have been had this all taken care of, and I could focus so much more on what's actually going on. Right? Cool. So, kind of throwing a curveball out here. On this next one, is it's more to do with relationships, and I would like to get more into the weeds on relationships because I think, especially recently, I've learned a lot of hard lessons in the relationship department, and this is not just like romantic. This is every aspect of relationships, right? Family, friend, enemy, whatever, right? But I think I would, I was never really taught how to deal with relationships, and it seemed, as I started to grow up, so foreign of a concept to me that a relationship is something that you have to like put work into, even with friends or family or like anybody. You have to be intentional if you want that relationship to be the best it can be. And I just didn't recognize that. Like, my friends were always my friends, and people like me for who I am, and that's true, and that's how it should be. But at the same time, like, I want my friends to know that I care about them and that I'm loyal and that like I got their back, right? How do I implement changes in the way that I approach the relationships so that they know that, so that they feel secure, right? I want my partner to know that I am trustworthy and that I can take care of business and I'm reliable and all these things. Whatever. My point being is that there's a lot more going on in the realm of relationships than I had ever anticipated. And now that I've, formed many complex relationships that have gone through some tough times, I think I've learned some lessons that could be potentially valuable to a young man like me who didn't know a damn thing and all he had was bad examples, right? But this may be the start of something like that. Dude, just got water on my freaking outline pack. Horrid. But anywho, jumping in. Talking about developing the strength to keep your partner accountable, right? And this is with anybody. And something that, as I've moved forward into a really complex romantic relationship, it's taught me a lot about how I need to organize myself in any relationship, right? And showed me big mistakes that I've made in friends that I've lost. Because, like I've said in the past, it's not your fault, but it is your problem. So recognizing that everyone makes their own choices, but like there are deep relationships that I've lost that are no more. And now that I'm older and I've had time and learned new things, it's obvious that like there was a lot that I could have done and that I wasn't doing. And it's like, maybe not entirely my fault, but I have some weight to bear there. Part of it is on me that I didn't do these things. And, again, you don't always know. You don't always know these things up front, but it's obvious later that it's like, I'm kind of fucking up there. But keeping your partner accountable. And I guess I do say partner here, but I mean the relationship partner of any type, and having the strength to do so. And this is, like when they're on some bullshit, when you see like someone in your group or your partner or your family member or whatever violating the principles that you are building your life on, you need to have the freaking stones, right? To be like, yo, we don't do that. That does not happen here. If I'm here, this is not going to happen, right? Like, we're better than that. This is not how we organize ourselves. It's not appropriate behavior, right? And call them out. And that's, not always an easy thing to do. I think maybe for some people it is easier, but I was never really that guy. Like, obviously, extreme examples, I'm gonna be like, dude, what the fuck are you doing, right? But on the subtle things, like I feel like I've made excuses instead of taking action, and just kind of let the person get away because I thought that that was helping. I thought that that's like me accepting them was doing the right thing, but really it just leads down this dark path of destruction. And now I've learned that the better thing to do is to call them out, because then they're faced up front with, I've made a mistake. And when you have that, it really is a separator, right? If they're really about it, then they're going to be like, yeah, okay, like that was my bad. If they're real, they're going to be like, I'm sorry, like I did mess up. That's my bad. It won't happen again. And then they're going to be able, because now they see how that works. They see that, okay, these people keep me accountable. I need to keep them accountable. So when they see you fucking up, which you're going to do, right? We're all human beings. Like I've made mistakes. My friends have made mistakes, and we call each other on that, right? Or at least the friends that I still got, you know what I'm saying? But if you don't do that, then it just builds in this thing of like, oh, I can sneak in some shit and they're probably going to let me get away with it, right? And then they just keep pushing that line and pushing that line and pushing that line. And even in a romantic sense, I used to think that it was not appropriate for me to call my significant other like, bro, you're being fucking crazy right now. Like, you're being an insane person, right? I thought that was like, oh, insensitive, and you're being abusive and verbal and, you know, whatever, all that stuff. But now I've realized, and my relationship has grown to such greater lengths because of this realization, that it's like, no, dude, if don't have what it takes to call this person out, then there is no line, right? Maybe there's kind of a line, but they're going to keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it down the way, and eventually everything is tolerable. And then you end up in this just god-awful relationship that neither of you enjoy, right? And maybe it even turns them into something that they aren't, just because you're able to allow it. And like, I guess I'm speaking more to the people that are like me in this sense, because I do know people who their entire lives have been like, had no problem being, hey, that was really stupid. I can't believe you did that. That's wrong. I can't, you know, whatever, calling people out immediately. But I've always been more of a pacifist in this sense. Like, I don't really want to cause problems. And it's not like I'm afraid necessarily, but it's just more like, it doesn't seem to be worth it to cause this uncomfortable moment between both of us. And it feels wrong. It doesn't feel like it's going to accomplish what I want it to accomplish. And it just feels judgmental, and it feels like I'm just causing problems for no reason. But now I realize that I'm actually causing more problems, because instead of slamming that door shut of bad behavior, right? Now I leave it, I may have, you know, been a little uncomfortable, and that maybe kind of closed the door a little bit, but the door's still open. And then now all this stuff can leak out. And so, at least in my experience, you have to develop the strength and be able to call your partner out on whatever bullshit they're doing, right? If you think they could be doing better and they're not, and they're really slacking, call them out. Be like, listen, like, I think you're fucking up. I really do. And like, care about you, but it really seems like you're going down a path, right? And then, you know, kind of off the back of this, again, when it comes down to balance, always, but you can't jump the gun. You know, you can't, because I've done both. As I said, like, I've been this way my whole life, and now I'm starting to realize the error of my ways and making amends. And there have been times, especially fairly recently, where like I have a call out, and then it turns out that I've kind of jumped the gun a little bit, and I was wrong, because I didn't stop and think about it, and I didn't observe the behavior. So it's like I have a buddy, and we only text, only conversations over text. And every once in a while we'll call, but it's mostly over text. And it's just all this gray matter has filled that space. Not now, we've cleared it up now, but it was filling the space to where we just weren't really understanding each other. And then I was like, I feel like something's going on. Like, I feel like there's something wrong with the way that he's behaving. Like, it's not congruent to who he is. He's falling out of balance somehow. And so then, instead of sitting and thinking and observing his actions and really understanding, I just would jump it out and be like, I think this, dude. I think you're whatever. And then just like kind of throwing accusations at him. And then it just kind of built, I don't think it really built that great of tension, but he would kind of make excuses or be like, obviously not. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, I guess I was wrong. And then that has happened like 3 times. And so really the difficult thing is like, when do you say something? And I think that there has to be a process that's created for this, but I'm not the guy who's going to be able to tell you that, right? At least right now. I'm not that far along in this department, but it is obvious that not only is it completely necessary, 100% necessary for you to be able to hold your partners accountable, but also completely necessary for you to have the patience and the understanding to recognize when you might be wrong about your initial judgment and then just hold off and just see how things are moving, right? Like you can develop a hypothesis and then just observe the behavior and, maybe observe the behavior first and then create a hypothesis off of that and then see if it is continuously proven and then be like, listen, dude, and come with your receipts, dog. Come with that shit up. Be like, listen, this is what I think is going on and this is why I think that. What's going on, right? And talk to him and coming from a place of like, because here's where my understanding shifted. Because originally I thought that I was causing problems with the relationship and that if I cared about someone, then I would accept them for who they are and I wouldn't be like nitpicky about their behavior. But now I've realized, man, almost losing it. Oh, now I've realized that in doing so, in calling out your partner in a not in a judgmental or rude, angry way, right? But it shows that I take this relationship very seriously and I really care about you. And even saying those things, in this process, like just reminding them, like, listen, bro, like I'm here for you, or listen, you're a girlfriend or boyfriend, wife, husband, whatever. I really care about you, right? Like this is not me coming at you, but it seems to me like this is happening. And then maybe there's going to be some anger up front and maybe there's going to be, some upset and some tears or whatnot. As I've experienced, right? Sometimes it doesn't go so well off the rip, but it's still long term. Once they have time to think it through, they realize, maybe not even up front, maybe somewhere in the back of the brain there, they recognize that like this person really cares about me. And I know that if I do mess up, even if they were wrong, if I do mess up, they're going to be there to hold me and they're going to be there to pick me back up, right? And it builds this extra layer of trust that I don't think I've ever had in my relationships before. I mean, I've had, but not really understood. Like it's happened kind of on accident before. And again, I've lost really important relationships to me because I was unable to do this. I was unable to come correct and come with conviction and be like, this is what you're doing wrong. And everyone thinks this, right? And then it just builds and it builds and it builds. And next thing you know, it's just incompatible people and you have to part. So, that can be avoided. Sometimes, people make their own decisions, right? And so sometimes you're going to end up there regardless because that's just what's meant to happen. But I truly believe that, there's a lot of work that can be done before that tragedy occurs. And that if you care about the relationship, then you should take these steps and learn to call out bad behavior and signs of decline in what's happening, right? And if you're not willing to do that, then that's okay too. Like I'm not saying that every single relationship you have to put 100% into. Like I certainly don't think about this with some of the schlubs that I work with, right? Because half the time they come in for a week and then they disappear. If it's not that kind of bond and you don't want to put that kind of work into the relationship, then just don't. But understand that's what it is, right? But if this is something that you really do care about and it's like, okay, obviously I want this long term, then you got to think about what that means. And I think this is kind of part of thinking about what that means is how do I ensure that this continues forward and, builds in the places that I want it to build. What do I value, right? Taking in all of your principles to consideration. Like, I value trust and honor and integrity and just loyalty, all these things. And so if someone starts violating those things right in front of you, you have to be able to call it out, right? And so this is, more from a long, many years of bad decisions and bad experiences, because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, because I never had anyone in my life. I mean, I'm not blaming everything else. Like, I should have figured this shit out, right? But to keep it real, I never had a good example of what good friendships look like in my life. I never had a good relationship or a good understanding or a good model of what a good romantic relationship looks like ever in my life, right? And so now I just kind of have to start from scratch in this department, and in doing so, starting from the bottom, I've learned a lot of things the hard way, and this is one of them. And I think this is something that really is important. And another big kind of sideline here, or little asterisk on this point, is make sure, if you're going to do this, make sure that you are on top of the game in the department that you're confronting, right? Do not ask of someone else what you do not do yourself. If you are consistently stealing, then you don't go to your friend and say, hey, I think stealing's wrong. You really shouldn't do that. When it's like, dude, I just saw you to take like 10 DVDs out of the mire, dog. What are you thinking, right? What are you talking about right now? Because then that just builds this like, I don't know, like pointing fingers dynamic in the relationship, and then it's not truthful. And it just like has the opposite effect, I'm sure, right? So, this kind of comes again with the thought process. And I've noticed this as well, where there have been times when I've seen behavior that my friends do, or my brother does, or my partner does, and it'll piss me off, man. I'll be like, dude, why would you do that? And then I'll think about it, and I'll be like, well, hold on. Do I ever do that? And then I'll pay attention, and then I do it too. And it's like, oh, okay. So then I have to do it within myself first and work on it and change that part of myself and, essentially lead by example. And then later on down the line, I could be like, dude, let's cut the bullshit, right? So that's kind of that on that one. But let me know what you think about this. Let me know what you think, because I'm curious if there's opposition to this, and I would love to hear an argument for the other side, because this is not something that I think that I've discussed really with anyone. I mean, my partner now, we've discussed it at great length, especially because I've jumped the gun many times. That's why I have this in here. Don't jump the gun, right? Do not, put some thought into it first, because sometimes I'll just come out swinging, dude. I'll just come out of I guess that's more of the swing, I've come out and just been like, you, and just trashed something. And it turns out that like I didn't need to do that. And, it was kind of just premature, and there wasn't enough behavior to justify my assumptions or anything, right? So building on that, but again, my point is that I haven't really talked this all the way through. And as I've learned from our first guest appearance podcast, check it out, 2 episodes ago, talking through your beliefs really allows you to understand why you believe these things and if you really do. And so, it's kind of like that old thing about you don't know something until you can teach it to a 6th grader or a 6-year-old, right? You don't truly understand something until you can teach it to a kid. And I don't know. I don't know where I was going with this. Jeez. But you get it. Oh, right. So I'm curious. I'm all over the place today, dude. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. I'm freaking out of my gourd. But and I literally just got home. Like, it's pretty early, so it should be pretty fresh. But either way, I'm curious to see what people have to say about this. And if you have an argument, a lengthy argument for the other side of the spectrum as to why you shouldn't call people out, or maybe just discussing the balance, I'd be curious. I would love to have that conversation. Cool. Cool. And again, all this applies to friend, foe, lover, all these things. This is not like relationships are relationships regardless of the aspect, right? If you're not, it works either way. If it's a real relationship that you intend on building on, I believe this is applicable. Cool. Uncle Nick says, all right, cool. So that concludes the 3-part segment. So we'll kind of run over the details so we don't get any fogginess here, and kind of just really plant the seeds, really drive things home. Cool. First, it was discovering your creative process and really your process around anything, and looking at the points that get you from A to B, and then learning what those are and why they work so that you can implement them in better ways and really have control over all of your processes, right? And then on the flip side of that, it's identifying what takes away from the places that you want to go and the concepts that you want to improve in, right? And taking care of those things immediately, getting those out of your way, avoiding them, right? And identifying problems that linger in your mind and just cause like network connection issues. You're not getting full beam speed because you got all this like pop-ups everywhere, right? All this bullshit that's clogging your freaking screen. I can't even read the article that I'm trying to focus on because I got all these, do you want to play this game? Shit popping up. You know what I'm saying? Cool. And then developing the strength to hold those around you accountable for the behavior that is deemed unacceptable. And maybe not just by you are not the end all be all, but like obvious errors, because everyone is individual and maybe people do things that you wouldn't do, but it doesn't necessarily make them a violation. It's a violation when it's like supremely undermining a principle that has been an agreed upon standard of the group, right? That we all hold ourselves to this level of respect, right? And when someone dips below that, you got to be like, yo, homie, pop that up, dog, right? And then also being the person who can say these things, not just jumping the gun and going right for it. Make sure first that you look at yourself to see if you are accountable enough to call out someone else's lack of accountability, right? And also taking the time and thought to think, is it necessary? Is it the best course of action for me to call this person out? Is it going to reach the desired effect that I'm going for? Or just the desired effect? I feel like cut it there. Right. Cool. So that is that. We can jump into our life hack. This one is a bit more applicable than past ones, although the shower beer was a banger. I don't care what anybody thinks. That'll change your freaking life. Every single time. But this one is learn how credit works. And again, never been a all-star player when it comes to money management. And so my credit score is not great. Now, that being said, I haven't like trashed my credit, but I have, it took me a long time to get a credit card because I just wasn't paying attention. And then when I did, I used it for the wrong reasons. I used it as like backup cash, and I just didn't pay it off for months and months and months. And so my credit score is just not great. So I have not that long of history, and the history that I do have is bad, right? So learning how it worked. Dude, it took me 15 minutes to just go on YouTube and look up like the FICO credit score breakdown. And in doing so, I have now brought up my credit by like 60 points in the last 2 months. Right? Maybe 3. But I'm pretty sure it was like 2, So like 2 cycles of my credit card, and now the thing's already almost up to the next, 100 point mark, right? And, credit is important for everything, man. For like, as far as I understand, I'm pretty new in the economics game, but credit's pretty important. So that's my life hack, is learning how it works, because I thought that if you use your credit card and then you pay it off on time that's how you get better credit. And somewhat that's true, but it's so much more than that. Like, there's different things that you do with your credit that are different percentages. Like, for example, and I might get some of these numbers wrong, but essentially it's like on-time payments is like 30% of your credit score, but 35% is credit utilization, right? So, and again, like, I'm not an expert on this, so I would say do some due diligence before just taking Uncle Nick's word for it. But 35% is credit utilization, which is the total amount of credit percentage that you use, or sorry, the percentage of your total amount of credit that you use actively, right? And so basically you have the percentage of credit that you use for each card, and then a total amount of credit allowance and how much of that you use. And so the lower you get that percentage number, the better it looks on your credit, because you're a safe borrower, right? And so my original plan was like, oh, I'll just buy groceries on the credit card, and then as soon as I get home, I'll pay it off, right? Because normally I pay cash for groceries anyways. But if I do this, then it looks like I'm using my credit card, and then my credit score will go up. But it's like, I don't even know if that's how it works, right? Maybe if I let it go to the end and then I paid it off, it would be an on-time payment, and that would be legit. But I don't know if I just do it and then pay it off immediately, do it and pay it off immediately if that helps. I'm not sure about that one. But so 65% of your credit score is on-time payments and utilization. And so I have, and then there's like some other tens in there that I'm not sure about the rest of it. It's like, what's it called when they take, when they collections, like stuff in collections and things like that. Old debt that you haven't paid off, all this stuff, remaining balances. So like a lot of other stuff down there, but you got to remember that all that stuff is like very small percentage. And so like I have some skeletons in my credit closet, right? But since I just looked at the breakdown, I watched someone explain it to me on YouTube for 15 minutes, and then watched another guy explain it for like 10 minutes, and then watched another guy explain it for a couple minutes, and then now it's like, okay, this seems to be how it works. So I just started making on-time payments, and every single time that I would spend money on a credit card, I would pay almost all of it off. So I drop back. Like, I don't have a high credit limit. I think it's like I have like $350 on one card, and then maybe $200 on the other one. So, I can spend whatever I want within that limit, but then as soon as, or at least before my credit cycle ends, then I'll pay it down to like $2, right? And then I'll let that go to the end of, because it's like at the end of the credit cycle, from the way that I understand it, is at the end of the credit cycle, that report gets published essentially and like sent to the credit bureau, and that's how it affects your credit score. And so anything that happens in there is like maybe not meaningless, but less important than the end result, because that is what's getting sent to the credit bureau that has a direct effect. And so just trying this out, right? Because now on-time payments and credit utilization are 65% of what make up my credit score. So maybe I'm not going to get to my 800, right? But I can at least improve it from where it is. And so I've just been trying it out, and I didn't really think about it for like the first 6 weeks, and then a couple weeks ago I checked, and I was like, holy shit. And then right after I checked, it had gone up, because it had gone up like 40 points. And then right after I checked, I got an email, because I was telling someone about it. I got an email that said your credit score just went up X amount, right? And so now it's like 40 to 60 points higher than what it was before I started doing these things. So this is a real effect. This is a real thing. And like, I've made mistakes in the past, and like I've been dogging on my credit, and now it's building back up. And so, everything revolves around credit. You want to get a loan, you need emergency funds, you need to buy a house, a car, all these things. You get better rates on everything, right? So it seems to be working out pretty good. So that's, long story short, that's my life hack, is just learn how credit works and figure out ways to build it so that it can, be beneficial to you and not just another rock in your shoe. Coolio. Sweet. Yeah, that's about all, gang. We'll wrap there. I'm starting to think that the clothing that I wear has some effect on the tone that I use in my videos. I'm not sure yet, playing around with it, but I realize, like, depending on what I'm wearing, like how I'm dressed, I come in with a different energy. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking my ass here, but let me know if you think that. Who knows? But like, I came in a sweatshirt and I feel very like chill. You know, I come in a nice shirt and I'm like, but anywho, that will be a wrap-a-rooney on this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of that guest episode. I'm really excited about that. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It was episode 7 or 8, I believe. I thought there was some good stuff in there. Let me know what you think. And hopefully we'll get another guest spot soon. I'm pretty excited to be moving forward on this stuff. Right? Cool. Now, after this, I'm going to take care of the bench over there because it is an absolute disaster. It has been for a long time. So we're going to clean that bad boy up. So I got some stuff to do. But thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And let's go get it, baby. Let's get her done. With that being said, Nick out.